Hey guys, I just wanted to do a little opening before we get to the heart of this video. This is for my Christian readathon. So I went back after filming the video and looked at the books that I read, and something was telling me that maybe I did not cover all of the prompts like I thought, and I didn't. So I failed on covering prompts 4 and 6. 4 was a Christian fiction book. I'm not big on Christian fictions unless it's like fantasy, um, kind of like the Prince Warrior books. Even on an adult level, but so I did not read anything that was Christian fiction. Um, and prompt 6, a random book. There was no, I didn't just randomly pick up a Christian book to read. I was very focused on the 3 books that I had chosen. And my focus was to literally read those 3 books before the readathon was over. And I was having a difficult time just reading those 3 books because of the busyness that comes with being a new teacher. I didn't realize there was so much new teacher training that I needed to go to, and how much work it actually is to set up a classroom. Um, in the past, most of my me being able to set up a classroom had always been given to me as like the first month or month and a half of school, because while teachers are testing students and trying to find the reading levels and all that stuff that they're on, I would be setting up my room because I can't start pulling small group interventions until we have all we get past like the chunk of time where people are still enrolling. So usually by like the 3rd week of school, we enrollment slows down, and then students are pretty much done being tested. So then our groups can be put together, and then we can start pulling groups. So I've always had a very adequate amount of time to be able to set up rooms. I didn't realize how little time, or close to no time, teachers have. So now I completely understand why, if the teacher is not moving buildings or moving classrooms, they don't pack up their classrooms at the end of the year, unless it's just like those things that need to be packed away from people or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into setting up a room. It's crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. And then the other books, I will put on the screens what prompts that those covered, and then I will put all the prompts down in the description. Enjoy the video. Hey guys, back with another video, and today I have my August wrap up. So I know my wrap up is a little bit late. It has been a busy August month. I don't know if you guys have seen any of my other videos, but I am a first year 5th grade teacher. What? So yes, even though I've been in education for 7 years, my job title has been different. I have been a building aide. I have been an instructional aide. And when I was an instructional aide, I was pulling small groups of kids for small group intervention instruction for reading, writing, and math. And then I was an ISS supervisor, in school suspension supervisor. So mostly dealing with behavior management and restorative practice behaviors, to get them reintegrated back in the classroom and to stay put into classroom. And then I landed a 5th grade teaching job. They like me. They really like me. So there's been a lot of training, a lot of reading for work, and then looking over lesson plans and curriculum, and some of it is still like, oh my goodness. Even though I look over this stuff for college classes, it's still a little bit different when you look over it for actually planning it for kids, because the way some of the college classes are set up, you're looking at a specific standard, mostly not the beginning of the year standards, and you're making lesson plans or unit plans for you to, give instruction. But we almost never pick. I mean, there's not to say that picking the beginning of the year stuff to work on is not something that we can't pick to turn in as part of our college, you know, credit or whatever, but we just choose not to, because it's just like, it's so much easier to just start with, oh well, prior to this lesson students have already learned da 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 da, so then put your lesson or your unit curriculum after they've already learned everything. No one really forces you to start those beginning of the year lessons or the beginning of the year unit plans, so it's been one of those things to learn to do. But it's been fun. It's been stressful. It's been fun. So because of all of that, and I don't know what I was thinking, I am also taking my master classes. So I'm working full time. I am a mom of 3 kids, a wife, and I'm taking master's classes. And I'm really involved in my church, and I refuse to give up being involved in my church. So I've been busy. So reading hasn't been all the way up here, but I have been doing some reading. So I host a readathon. Don't know if anyone participated in it with me, but this is year 2 of my Christian readathon. The prompts I will put below. And I'm not going to lie and tell you that I remember all the prompts. I know it's something I put together. I should probably remember the prompts. What I did is wrote them down. And I do know that 2 of the prompts I kind of changed just a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I read. And then probably somewhere in this video, as I edit it, I will let you know what prompts somewhere on the screen, up here or down here or across my face, I will put what prompts those books covered, because I do know that they covered a prompt. So what I do is I pick out my books, I make sure that those books cover a prompt, and I check it off, and then I move the checklist aside, and then I just carry my books around everywhere to make sure that I'm constantly reminded that I need to read this book. So I don't always keep the prompts on me. Even if I participate in another readathon hosted by someone else on YouTube, I do not keep the list with me. I just pick out the books, make sure that I've checked off that they covered a prompt. I put that list away, and then I keep the books on me. So that's what I did. So I can go through and tell you what books I read. And if I remember the prompts, because some of them I do remember, I'll tell you what those are. And 2 of the books I didn't put on here that I did read this month. And one of them was a comic. Where is that comic? It was Lazarus. All right, so I'll start there. So I read Lazarus, not a part of the Christian readathon, but it's a comic about a girl who how do I describe this without giving it away? It's post-apocalyptic times. She is being experimented on by her brother with a certain type of medicine, and she's pretty much like the executioner. That's all I give you. I give it a 3 stars. It was good, but it wasn't like, I don't know, because I guess it's because I've also watched a movie that's very similar to the comic, and it's called Lazarus, and I'm not sure if that movie is supposed to be based off of the comic. If it is, to me it seems very different. But also the issue of Lazarus that I picked up did not have a number on it, so I don't know if that was supposed to be issue number 1. But it very much so felt like it was in the middle of the story. So I didn't even get all the way through the comic. I didn't DNF it. I paused it because it was it just seemed like it was in the middle, and I didn't want to continue the story in the middle. I wanted to see if there was another part to it, and then if there's not another part to it, then I'll continue to read it. But that's the first one. And maybe I put it in the wrong section, but I'm gonna look it up because I could have swore Lazarus. Yeah. Oh yeah. See, I have it on here. So I did complete it. So and it said it was number one. So then maybe I just thought I didn't complete it because it didn't seem finished. It really didn't seem finished. It seemed like it started in the middle of a story that was already ongoing, and it also it didn't really end. So it seems like it's supposed to be ongoing, which it says Lazarus 1, so I'm guessing it is ongoing. Um, it was okay. I didn't even write a review on Goodreads for it because it was literally just okay. All right. So, but I don't know why that didn't show up in my read. So, whatever. Let's go back. Go back. Go back. People, go back. I don't know why it's not going back to my homepage. All right, let's just open it up all over again. Okay, now books that were on my Christian readathon that I read. The Chosen, is What Does It Mean to Be Chosen? An interactive Bible study. The Chosen Bible Study Series, Book 1. I believe there's another one in the making that will come out soon that goes along with season 2. My girls group went over the book hand in hand with season 1, and I thought it was really great. I recommend it as a read. I recommend the series as one to watch. I also recommend reading and watching. So like one week you do the reading and you watch the episode. But you literally have to watch the episode first and then you do the reading. That's the interactive way. It's not reading the chapter first and then watching the episode like some interactive reading is. But yeah, you have to watch the episode first and then you do the first week's reading. And then we talked about it together. So there's 8 episodes, and I think this was one of the prompts that I changed. Not necessarily changed, but changed in the way you could go about doing it. What I did was have a book to where you can read with a group of people, like a devotional with a group of people, and it could be something that was on the Bible app. That was a change that I made. Or it could be something that was already ongoing and just finished out in the month of August. And the reason I had it that way was because there are a lot of devos and devotional books that have so many chapters to them, and it usually takes roughly 8 to 12 weeks for some of them. And there are some that are shorter, but even the ones that are shorter usually can be broken down into something longer because there's just a lot of information to dissect and a lot of things where you like talking about them with your group of girls or guys, if you're doing it with a group of guys, that you have to talk about, and there's so much to talk about, and depending on how big or small your group is, you can break those questions up into 2 different meetings. And so this one was literally a chapter a week, and it took us 2 months to do because it was a chapter a week, and there was 8 episodes, 8 chapters. So really, really great book. Not only does it make you dig deep within yourself, but it also helps like you to get closer to the people around you, and you guys dig deep into each other's lives and what to hold each other accountable for. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. Another book that was on my TBR. So there was so many. I think there were 6 in all, and one book can cover all 6 if it can, and then If not, then it didn't. I think that first book, What Does It Mean to Be Chosen, only covered the Devo one. But this next book is Heaven is for Real. Wait, I don't even know if I showed you the Chosen cover, so that's the cover. And this one I found on Kindle. So this one is cheaper to just buy on Kindle, but it's also not expensive either to order the book. So some people ordered it, some people didn't. I got it on Kindle. Heaven is for Real, a little boy's astounding story of his trip to heaven and back. It took me a long time to get to this book. I had got it at the Goodwill and I had it in my stack, and I think it's been in my stack for, I want to say, almost 6 months, because I really don't think it was a really long time. It could have been longer. I could have gotten it during like last year's summer, but I really thought that I got it earlier this year. I honestly, I don't remember. But I had gotten it, and it's been in the stack for a little while, and it took me a minute to read because I really thought that this was like a kid's story of them asking questions about heaven and a parent explaining to them what they, what the Bible says about heaven and what, their interpretation of the Bible is. And it wasn't that I didn't want to read that type of story, because there's nothing wrong with that type of story. It's just I wasn't in the mood to read that type of story, but it was like, hey, one day I will get to this and I will read it, because I really did want to. And that's why I bought it. And the book was only $1, so even if I really didn't want to read it, I wouldn't have wasted $1 on it. That's how cheap I am with my books. I wouldn't have wasted $1 on it if I wasn't interested. But anyway, this book turned out to be really, really good. I gave it a 5-star. And I will read what I actually wrote. Hold on, let me see. Where is it? Alright, it says, I had so many emotions reading this book and listening to the audio. So what I did is read through the chapter first and then went back and listened to the audio. And I did that each time. So I read first and then listened to the audio. And then after I listened to the audio, I just went back through and listened to the audio. I seriously got chills throughout reading this book. I really did, because some of the stuff is kind of like, well, maybe that's just how the kid is describing it, and it really didn't happen that exact way, but because kids don't have, a whole lot of vocab words or vocabulary in their what do you call it? I don't know, their conversation. I forget how we say it. But in order for your language and your speech to be really good, you have to know vocabulary. You have to know, diction and how to talk about it. And some kids just don't have a whole lot of vocabulary to work with, and descriptive words and, adjectives and all that stuff. And if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you are just a person that spends a lot of time with kids, you know what I'm talking about. But you do have those kids that know what they're talking about and know what they mean, and they say it exactly how they mean. And those kids I find to be very frank, very forward, and I love them to pieces, just the same as other kids. But the way the dad went about describing how his son told him these stories, it's like you can hear your child or someone else's child telling you this story. It was very childlike in the description, but at the same time very a matter of fact, like, no, this happened to me. And I mean, if most kids don't lie, like, I mean, about small petty stuff that they don't want to get in trouble for, like, I don't know, stealing like a candy bar from the pantry, that sort of thing, yes. And not to say, that isn't bad, because as we know, a lie is a lie is a lie, sin is sin, right? But this is just very intricate, very detailed story for a kid to just say, oh, this happened to me, and then all these things along the way happen. But what I appreciated the most about this story is that it wasn't about the kid. Like, it was about the kid and about his story, but it wasn't about the kid. It was more about the adults' acceptance of the story, the adult processing the story, the adults dealing with what happened to their son, and knowing that they literally had no control over it and they had to give it to God. It was just, and then, while they're giving it to God, they have to just pray and just be there and deal with it and go through the motions and allow people to help them and be there with them as they're going through it, knowing that literally they can't do anything about it. It was that part of the story for me that gave me the chills, the goosebumps, the 5 out of 5 star rating. Not to say that what the child went through, that I should not have been emotional about it. I was. I mean, no parent wants to be like, oh, my child died but didn't die. My child went to heaven and I didn't know anything about it. Like, all of this happened, but I'm out here crying because I'm not going to be able to see my child again. And in all of it, my child is also teaching me a story that heaven is for real. God is for real. This is what happened. This is what I saw. This is what God told me. And it's like, well, even when bad things happen, you believe it, that God is real and he's there, but it takes that one thing happening for it to sink in. One of the stories in here, not to give it all completely away, but one of the points that really did this for me, to give it a 5-star, was that the dad, who I believe is a pastor, was telling part of the story to a congregation, and he pretty much said, like, when you go through something, rough or tough, and this is just a summary, but you go through something rough or tough, and you know that you're relying on God and you pray to God, but sometimes, even if you don't want to admit it and believe it, your heart isn't always in it, and then that one thing happens, and then you're like, oh man, am I really trusting in God? Did I really trust in God before this thing happened? If I didn't, this is really making me see, my not necessarily hypocrite ways in my belief, but that I'm still fighting to give my heart to God, and that is a relationship that I want to fight to keep, sort of thing. I don't know. I really, really loved that story. So yeah, that gave me a 5 out of 5, and he says it in so much better way, so read it. But it was a really good book. So I definitely highly recommend Heaven is for Real. And it's a short read. It's not an extravagant read to where you wouldn't be able to do it. It's a good read. I am also, I'm in the middle of, but done for the purposes of this readathon, done with this next book I'm about to talk about. Before I do it, I do have to say that I do remember one prompt for Heaven is for Real, and that's a story of a testimony. So it hits on the story of a testimony. It hits on love, but not in a romance sort of way, more of in a family dynamic. And then it does talk about the relationship between the wife and the husband, but it's not in a let's fight together sort of way, to keep centered on God instead of a lovey-dovey romance thing. And I'm trying to remember all the rest of my prompts. But this book also touched on another one I can't remember. But I do know that this book was one of the books that touches on, I believe, almost all of the prompts except for the devotional one. So I read some of this, but I also stated that each story within this book is actually a story. It's kind of like this book is filled with many stories. So even if you read just one in here, it covers the prompt, if that makes any sense. Kind of like if you just read a book full of short stories, reading one story out of that book still counts towards whatever readathon that you were doing. Usually it does, unless there's a couple out there where it doesn't, then it just some. But I've been a part of some readathons where just one story out of the book has worked. And for books like this, I would also count that, because the stories can be standalone stories. All of these stories in here are standalone stories. This is literally just a book of a collection of short stories, standalone short stories. So this book is called I Found Love, and there are 5 stories in here that touch on, because they're even broken up by the type of love. So one is in search of love, one is in search of belonging, and the other one is in search of friendship. So each one of these stories are a standalone, and I enjoyed it. They're also all testimonies. So they cover, the first part of this covers romance. So I did cover the romance part of this, because I think there was one that was like either fiction romance or not fiction romance. I can't remember, but the whole thing is titled love, but it's not all about romance love, obviously, because the last one is friendship, and then the middle section is just finding your belonging to be loved by a group of people. But the first part of it is romance. But these are also testimonies, so it does cover testimonies. And I really need to just stop saying I'm trying to remember, because I'm going to insert and post down below the prompts. So, but this book was awesome. It was amazing. What I've read of it so far, the 5 stories that I have read, actually 6. Sorry, I just looked at where my my bookmark is. My Slytherin bookmark. Yes, so the 6 stories that I read, first of all, some of these people, I'm like, God is definitely with you, because how can you love after that? But this book I also recommend to people, because I know a lot of the friendships I've had, and I am in the middle of starting and being in these friendships, that a lot of people have been burned by love, like in a relationship with someone else type of love, more so than family love. And then there's other people that have been burned by, family love or friendship love as well. But their biggest thing that they've been burned by is like, I'll never marry because of, XYZ. Great book. That's all I can say, because if I say anything else, I will literally give away these 6 stories that I did read. So all in all, for me, I do think the readathon I was successful in. If you don't think so, you can let me know below. But this was a good round 2. My round 1 was good, but I thoroughly enjoyed round 2 of the Christian Readathon a whole lot better. So those were the 3 books that I read for the Christian Readathon. So books that was not part of the Christian Readathon that I read, Lazarus was one of them. The Lotus Seed, which is a book that I read with my students as part of our read aloud. Yes, I count the read alouds. I have to read these stories 2 times to the kids, okay? Twice. 2 days in a row. So when you start a book, you read the book, that book the entire first day, then you'll read it again the next day, because the conversations are different, but you want to remind them of what they read. So the Lotus Seed, I appreciated this one because it touched on history at the same time as, learning how to read new words. But it is a story about this family leaving their country of Vietnam because of the war, coming to America, embracing the new culture that was a culture shock to them, and adjusting to those things. But it also touches on what do you call it? Passing stories down, passing items that you will remember someone by, you know, down the generations, helping with those stories, and, you know, just information, passing information down to generations after you. And I don't know, I really appreciated the story, and so did my students. Surprisingly, they did not appreciate the pictures. They said the pictures were too old. So they wanted me to rate this as a 3. I also rated it as a 3 because while I appreciate the history of the Vietnam War and the passing of things down, I do feel like the pictures of this book is a little outdated, so it did not help with connection. And with the way art and stuff is and republishing things, I do feel like it probably could have been updated because the story itself does have meaning. But the pictures kind of take away from it. And I know it's a read aloud for kids, so therefore it was short, but I do feel like there was so much that was packed inside of what was not said in the words of this book, that some of it was you know, kind of given in the pictures, but I do feel like it could have been more. But we're also talking about a read aloud. I don't know that I could sit up there in front of my kids and read. I mean, it was hard reading a book that was, which I'll talk about too, because I did read that one and I just hadn't wrote it down for whatever reason. But I read a book that was 60 pages. I think it was 60 pages. And that was hard to read because it was an expository text, like an informational text. And I was just like, oh my goodness. But anyway, Lotus Seed. Something to Remember Me by. Also read aloud to my students. I gave it also a 3-star for the same reasons. While the story was great, and I think my students loved the story in and of itself, the passing down of, you know, items and things that have the story to it, and you can remember and you can pass that down generation after generation. You know, start maybe your own tradition with it. Instead of giving, you know, a chest or clothes, you give something else, you know, just something that can just be passed down, passed along. This was good. Pictures just old, outdated, and all that stuff. So 3-star. Everybody Cooks Rice was also a read aloud. We gave that one 4 because the pictures were not as outdated, which made the connection a whole lot better. My kids thoroughly enjoyed this. We did a lot of writing on this book as well. They enjoyed the different backgrounds and of the cultures that were mentioned in the book, from where the families were from. They also appreciated the fact that they learned that rice could be cooked different ways. And now that I say that out loud, I also forgot to copy the recipes for them that was in the back of the book. They all want to cook the rice recipes that were given in the back of the book. So, with permission, I do have to copy those recipes so that they can learn how to cook, educational purposes. Yeah, but that was a good book. 4 out of 5. The other book is called Rainforest. And I don't know if I can actually find it in here because I know there's probably a lot of books called Rainforest. There's so many. But we read the book last Thursday, and it was a really great book. It was an expository text. I have to make sure I keep saying that. And students learned text features from this book. And I really, really wish that I had the book in my hands. Let's see. I am signed in. Okay, so I can find on my Google Slides the picture of the cover of the book. Alright. So, Kingfisher readers, so I'll be able to find it now. But anywho, without giving away all of my other stuff, that is what the cover of the book looks like. But we used it to identify text features, to learn more about the rainforest. This book, actually, I used this book as a leeway into my geography lesson, or lessons, my geography unit, because it was just really easy to leeway in it. So there's a map that's in this book. So while this book is reading, it's also science, and it is also social studies. So we learned our expository text, we learned how to dig more in with our text features, with the pictures, the captions, bold letters, context clues, all that stuff. And then there was a picture of a map that was in it that was showing like the equator and where the rainforest aligned with the equator, and I took that as a leeway into my geography lesson. So that was awesome. So that was something else that I read. I genuinely don't remember reading any other books this month. I checked out some more books for August. Did not get around to reading them. Some of them were actually short books. Could have listened to, but I didn't. Didn't get to it. But I will let you know what those other books are, because those will be on my September TBR. So that is all I have for you for my August wrap up. That is what I did. Let me know what you think about these books below. And that is all until next time. Bye.